Blueberries. On Whitmore ground, Harold Vance laughed loudly enough for every farmer inside the Mercer County Co-op to hear him. It was a wet Saturday morning in March of 1987, and 27-year-old Clara Whitmore stood at the seed counter with a handwritten order in front of her. 1,800 blueberry plants, 40 bags of pine bark, granulated sulfur, peat moss, 3,000 feet of drip irrigation tubing. Harold adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on his nose and read the order again, as if he believed he had misunderstood it. Then he looked around the room. "You boys hear this," he said. "Elias Whitmore's girl plans to grow blueberries on the poisoned 40. Several men near the coffee pot turned around. One of them whistled. Another shook his head. Harold tapped the order form with his pencil. "That soil is poisoned, girl. You'd have better luck planting dollar bills." The room erupted. Someone near the fertilizer display called out. At least dollar bills wouldn't need watering. Clara felt every face turn toward her. She had grown up with most of those men. They had eaten at her family's table, borrowed her father's tools, and stood beside his grave less than 4 months earlier. Now they were laughing at the last thing he had left her. 46 acres of neglected ground on the eastern edge of Mercer County. Missouri, the bank called it worthless. The county called it contaminated. Everyone else called it the poisoned 40. Clara did not argue. She did not tell Harold that she had spent the previous 6 weeks walking the property with a soil probe. She did not mention the 24 glass jars lined up on the workbench in her father's barn. She did not explain that each jar had been taken from a different depth and location. She simply signed the order. "When can the plants be delivered?" she asked. The laughter faded a little. The clerk looked at Harold. Then back at Clara. "Middle of April. I'll be ready." She folded the receipt, placed it inside a black notebook, and walked out into the rain. Harold watched through the co-op window as she climbed into her father's faded 1968 Ford pickup. "Poor girl," he said. "Grief will make people believe anything." But grief was not why Clara had ordered the blueberries. And Harold Vance had no idea what was written inside that black notebook. The Whitmore property had not always been considered poisoned. When Clara's grandfather bought the land in 1948, it was a small cattle farm with shallow hills, clay soil, and a narrow creek along the eastern boundary. The trouble began 6 years later when Mid-State Timber Treatment opened a fence-post plant on the neighboring property. For nearly 2 decades, the company treated railroad ties and utility poles with chemical preservatives. On rainy days, dark water flowed from the storage yard into the drainage ditch that crossed the Whitmore farm. At first, nobody paid much attention. The plant employed 30 local men. It sponsored a little league team. Its manager donated lumber to the church. Then, in the spring of 1973, 3 Whitmore calves became sick after drinking from a low pond near the eastern fence. 1 died. 2 years later, Elias Whitmore planted corn on the lower 12 acres. The stalks emerged normally, then turned yellow before reaching knee height. Some rows died completely. Harold Vance, then a young county extension assistant, took 1 soil sample from beside the drainage ditch. The laboratory found chemical residue within a week. People were saying the entire Whitmore farm was contaminated. Within a month, they were calling it poisoned. Elias stopped planting the lower field. He moved his cattle uphill and hammered a wooden sign beside the ditch. "Keep livestock out." The treatment plant closed in 1978, but its reputation remained. Banks would not lend against the property. Neighbors would not pasture animals there. When Elias tried to sell 10 acres during a difficult year, he received no offers, so he kept the land, and every spring, long after everyone else had dismissed it, he walked the fields with a shovel. Clara remembered seeing him from the kitchen window, kneeling in the dirt, crumbling soil between his fingers. When she asked what he was doing, he always gave the same answer. Listening to dirt, to what the dirt is trying to tell me. At 17, Clara thought that was just one of her father's strange sayings. At 27, standing alone in his barn after his funeral, she finally understood. She found the notebook beneath a tray of rusty sockets in his red toolbox. The cover was stained with grease. The corners had been worn smooth. Inside were 12 years of handwritten observations, rainfall totals, drainage patterns, plant growth, soil color, the dates certain weeds appeared, rough pH readings from a garden test kit. There were maps drawn in pencil and numbers written beside nearly every low spot, on one page. Elias had sketched the eastern drainage ditch and marked a narrow strip in red. Beside it, he had written, "Trouble follows the water," on another page. "Upper clay holds clean, lower ditch carries residue." And then, on a page dated May 9, 1983, "The ground isn't dead. The water is carrying the trouble." Clara read the sentence 3 times. On the final page, written in a shakier hand, was one more note. "Blueberries may like what corn hates." Behind the barn, Clara found 3 blueberry bushes. 2 were dead. The third was waist-high and still alive. Her father had planted it 4 years earlier. That single surviving bush was why she sent soil samples to an independent agricultural laboratory 2 counties away. She did not take one sample from beside the ditch. She divided the property into sections. She took soil from the upper slope, the center field, the old corn ground, the creek edge, and 3 different depths along the drainage line. The results arrived 10 days before her visit to the co-op. The news was not simple. There was contamination. The soil beside the old drainage ditch contained chemical residue high enough to make food production unsafe. But the contamination was concentrated in a strip less than 4 acres wide. Most of the remaining land showed no dangerous residue. And something else stood out. The soil across the upper 22 acres had a pH between 4.8 and 5.3. Too acidic for strong corn production, too acidic for many pasture grasses, but close to ideal for blueberries. The county had not been completely wrong. Part of the farm was contaminated. What it had done was mistake. One damaged strip for the whole property. Clara had $8,400 from her father's life insurance policy, the blueberry plants. Amendments, irrigation materials, and delivery consumed nearly all of it. She applied for a $15,000 operating loan at Mercer County Bank. The loan officer, Paul Hensley, read her plan without expression. When he finished, he closed the folder. "This county grows corn, soybeans, and cattle," he said. "It doesn't grow boutique fruit on contaminated ground. The planting area tested clean." The county report says otherwise. The county report is based on one sample from 1975. It is still the official report. "I have 24 new samples." Paul leaned back in his chair. "Miss Whitmore, your father was a decent man. But decent men can still hold on to bad land too long." Clara's jaw tightened. He didn't think it was bad land. And now he isn't here to lose money on it. The sentence hung between them. Paul seemed to regret it. But he did not take it back. The loan was denied. Clara left the bank with $43 in her checking account and no money to hire help. She began preparing the ground alone. First, she marked the contaminated strip with bright orange stakes. She placed the first marker 20 feet beyond the laboratory's recommended boundary. Then she rented an old trenching machine for $600 to redirect surface water away from the planned blueberry rows. The machine ran for 40 feet before the chain jumped off its sprocket. The rental company refused to refund her money. Clara spent 2 days repairing it. It broke again before noon. She finished the drainage trench with a shovel. The work took 9 days. She dug until blisters opened on both palms. She wrapped them in cloth and kept digging. She built a low berm above the planting area, filled the drainage channel with crushed limestone where no roots would reach it, and shaped raised beds across the upper slope. She mixed pine bark and aged sawdust into the clay. She applied sulfur carefully, row by row, based on the pH of each section rather than spreading the same amount everywhere. At night, she studied horticulture manuals at the kitchen table. During the day, she measured. She labeled every row. A1 through A18, B1 through B18. She recorded water volume, soil moisture, and acidity. The truck carrying the blueberry plants arrived on April 17. It passed the co-op just after 10 in the morning. By lunchtime, everyone in town knew. Men began slowing their pickups when they drove past the Whitmore property. Some stopped entirely. Harold Vance pulled his county sedan onto the shoulder and watched Clara unload the plants. "You can still send them back," he called. Clara set another container on the ground. "They ray already home." Harold shook his head. "You ray putting good money into bad dirt. My father said the dirt wasn't too bad." "Your father was emotionally attached to this place. So am I. Emotion doesn't change chemistry." "No," Clara said, "but better testing does." Harold's smile disappeared. "You think I don't know how to take a soil sample?" "I think you took one." He stared at her for a moment. Then he got back into his sedan and drove away. For 3 weeks, the blueberry bushes looked healthy. Then the leaves began turning red. By the end of May, dozens had wilted. 11% of the plants died during the first month. A leak developed in the irrigation line. Deer broke through the old fence and ate 70 young bushes. After 2 days of heavy rain, several low beds filled with water. Clara watched the plants decline and wondered whether the county had been right after all. Word spread quickly. At the diner, people began calling the field Clara's cemetery. Someone painted blueberry graveyard on a piece of scrap wood and leaned it against her mailbox. Clara removed the sign before her mother could see it. Harold arrived on a warm afternoon in June. He walked between the rows, stopping beside a dead plant. He bent the stem until it snapped. "Plants don't care about notebooks," he said. Clara was too tired to answer. "You have maybe 1,200 living bushes. Half of those don't look good. I know how many are alive. You should stop before you lose more. What do you suggest? Pull them. See the upper ground in grass. Keep the lower strip fenced. Maybe someone will rent the clean pasture. My father tried pasture. Your father tried a lot of things." Clara looked at him. Harold lowered his voice. "I am trying to help you. Then help me understand why they ray dying." "I already told you. Poison. Yes. Then why are the plants closest to the contaminated strip healthier than the ones uphill?" Harold glanced toward the rows. "They ray not. They are." He did not stay long enough to inspect them. That evening, Clara dug up one of the dead bushes. She washed the dirt from the roots in a bucket. The roots were brown and soft. She cut them open. They did not show the dry, burned appearance she expected from chemical injury. They showed rot. She dug up another plant from a higher bed. Its roots were pale, firm, and spreading. The problem was not poison. It was water. The clay beneath several raised beds had settled, creating shallow basins. Water collected around the roots after every rain. Blueberries needed consistent moisture, but they could not survive in waterlogged soil. Clara worked through the night. She dug trenches beside the failing beds. She lifted the remaining bushes, added bark and coarse sand beneath them, and rebuilt 14 rows by hand. She replaced 196 plants with money earned by selling her father's old hay wagon. By August, the difference was visible. The raised plants produced new growth. The leaves deepened from red to green. The rows closest to the condemned field, where the slope provided better drainage, grew faster than all the others. Harold never returned that summer. The following spring, Clara removed every flower from the bushes. Farmers driving past saw her clipping blossoms and assumed the plants had failed again. In reality, she was preventing fruit production, so the young plants would put their energy into roots. She worked nights at a diner in town to pay for mulch and fencing. At 2 in the morning, she returned home smelling of coffee and frying oil, changed into work clothes, and checked the irrigation lines with a flashlight. The second year brought a small crop, not enough to sell commercially. Birds ate nearly a third of it. Clara stretched old fishing net over wooden frames and used tin pie plates to frighten them away. Her mother made 12 jars of blueberry jam. They sold all 12 at the church picnic, the third year. The field began to change. The soil under the pine bark turned darker. Earthworms appeared where Clara had never seen them before. Clover grew between the rows. The bushes reached her waist. In June, a produce buyer from Kansas City stopped after seeing the field from the highway. "How many acres?" he asked. "6 planted. How much fruit next year?" "I don't know yet." He looked down a row heavy with green leaves. "Call me when you do." For the first time, Clara allowed herself to believe the farm might survive, but Harold still dismissed it. A green bush isn't a profitable crop, he told farmers at the co-op. Then, in the spring of 1990, nearly every bush flowered at once. White blossoms covered the field. Bees moved through the rows from sunrise until dusk. By early June, the branches were bending under clusters of green fruit. Clara estimated the first commercial harvest could exceed £7,000. The Kansas City buyer offered to take everything she could pick. She hired 12 local teenagers and ordered wooden flats from a supplier in St. Joseph. Harvest was scheduled for the first week of July. Then the rain came. It started shortly before midnight on June 26. By 2 in the morning, water was moving across the old treatment plant property and into the drainage ditch. Clara stood under the barn light, watching the ditch rise. At 3:15, the water crossed the first orange boundary stake. If it spilled over the bank and entered the planting area, the county could stop the harvest. Even if laboratory tests later showed the fruit was safe, the rumor alone could destroy her market. Clara started her father's old Ford tractor and pushed soil toward the berm. The rear tires slipped in the mud. She tried again. The tractor moved 6 feet and sank to the axle. She ran to the telephone. The first person she called was her neighbor, Earl Benson. Earl had laughed at the co-op 3 years earlier. He arrived 20 minutes later with a John Deere loader. Then came the co-op clerk with sandbags, then 2 teenagers Clara had hired for harvest. By 4:30, 9 people were working in the rain. No one mentioned the jokes. They carried stone, shoveled mud, and built a second barrier above the field. The water stopped less than 20 feet from the first row of blueberry bushes. At 7 in the morning, Harold Vance arrived in the county sedan. He stood beneath an umbrella and looked at the flooded drainage strip. "This changes things," he said. "The water never entered the planted area. It came close. Close isn't the same as entered. I may have to recommend a hold on the harvest." Earl Benson dropped his shovel. "You know, she kept that water out." Harold did not look at him. The public needs to know the fruit is safe. Clara wiped rain from her face. "Then test it." Harold seemed surprised. "Test the soil," she continued. "Test the water. Test the berries. We'll have to collect multiple samples." "Good. It could delay your harvest. Do it." Harold lowered the umbrella slightly. "You understand that if the results are bad, the entire crop may have to be destroyed." "Yes, and you still want the testing." Clara looked at the rows behind her. "But this time, take more than one sample." The laboratory team arrived the next morning. They collected water from the well, the creek, and the drainage ditch. They took soil from the contaminated strip, the berm, the planted rows, and the upper slope. They picked berries from 6 locations, 24 samples in total. The county placed a temporary hold on the harvest. For 6 days, Clara waited. The fruit continued ripening. Birds found gaps in the netting. Several branches broke under the weight. The Kansas City buyer called twice. "I can hold the truck until Monday," he said. "After that, I need another supplier." On the 6th afternoon, Harold telephoned. "The results are in." He did not tell her what they said. He asked her to come to the county office. Clara arrived carrying her father's black notebook. Harold sat at the end of a long conference table. Paul Hensley from the bank was there. So was a representative from Midstate Timber Treatment's insurance company. 3 county officials sat along the wall. A thick laboratory report lay in front of Harold. He adjusted his glasses and began reading. The drainage strip still contains chemical residue above the recommended level for food production. The company representative folded his arms. Harold continued. "The berm and diversion channel have prevented migration into the planted area." Clara said nothing. The well water samples were within acceptable limits. Soil from the blueberry rows showed no contamination above the agricultural threshold. He turned a page. The fruit samples were clear. The room remained silent. "Clear?" Paul Hensley asked. "No detectable residue in 19 samples. Trace levels below the reporting limit in the remaining samples." The company representative leaned forward. "We want independent verification." The laboratory repeated the analysis. Harold said the results were confirmed. He closed the report. "The harvest may proceed." Clara placed the black notebook on the table. "That wasn't the question." Harold looked at her. "What question?" "For 13 years. The official county position has been that the Whitmore farm is poisoned. A portion of it is contaminated." "That is not what the report says. The old report, refers to the property as contaminated acreage. The bank used it to deny loans against all 46 acres. Buyers used it to value the entire farm as worthless. You told everyone at the co-op that I was planting in poisoned soil." Harold's face reddened. There were legitimate concerns. "I know. That is why I fenced the damaged strip. That is why I redirected the water. That is why I asked for 24 tests." She leaned forward. "Was the entire farm ever poisoned?" Nobody moved. Harold glanced toward the county officials. One of them looked down at his papers. Finally, Harold answered. Clara's voice remained calm. "Was the blueberry field poisoned?" "No, then the official map should say so." Harold looked at the laboratory report again. "Yes," he said quietly. "It should." The county lifted the harvest hold at 4:30 that afternoon. Clara expected 12 pickers the next morning. 73 people arrived. Some came to work, some came to watch. Some came because they had laughed 3 years earlier and wanted to see whether the berries were real. At sunrise, mist hung over the rows. The bushes were thick with dark blue fruit. Wooden flats lined the field road. The Kansas City truck arrived 2 hours early. Clara stood beside the first row, wearing her father's old canvas jacket. Though the morning was already warm, her mother handed the first empty bucket to Earl Benson at 6:15. The picking began. The field filled with voices. Children moved between the rows. Older farmers who had never seen a commercial blueberry planting examined the irrigation lines and dug their fingers into the mulch. By 10 o'clock, the first truck was half full. By noon, it was loaded. Harold arrived shortly after 1. He parked beside the weathered sign that still read "Keep Livestock Out." No one greeted him. He walked slowly toward the packing table. Clara was weighing a flat of berries, 8 pounds, 6 ounces. She wrote the number on a card. Then she picked up a full wooden crate and held it out to him. Harold hesitated before taking it. "These came from the ground you told me to abandon," she said. He looked down at the berries. They were firm, dark and nearly uniform in size. Behind Clara, workers continued carrying crates from the rows. The banker stood near the truck. The co-op clerk was stacking flats. A reporter from the county newspaper waited with a camera. Harold looked across the field. 3 years earlier, he had seen red leaves, dead plants, and muddy clay. Now the rows stretched green and heavy beneath the July sun. He removed his glasses. "I was wrong," he said. The reporter raised her camera. Harold looked toward the people gathered around the packing table. Then he repeated it more loudly. "I was wrong about this field." No one cheered. For several seconds, the only sound was the rattle of empty buckets. Then Earl Benson stepped forward, reached into his wallet, and placed $5 on the table. "I'll take the first box that S&T headed to Kansas City." Others followed. By the end of the day, Clara had sold every flat not loaded onto the truck. The final harvest total reached £8,900, nearly 40% above her estimate. After expenses, the crop earned more than $14,000. It was more than the bank had once claimed the entire property was worth. 2 weeks later, Paul Hensley visited the farm. He brought an application for a larger operating loan. "We can finance an expansion," he said. 10 acres. Maybe 12, refrigerated storage, a packing shed. Clara read the proposal, then she crossed out most of the amount. "I'll borrow enough for a small cooler."